Time to rock and roll!
Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop. Guys, Hearthstone is once again at the epicenter of a scandal. In the latest patch, the developers have changed the weekly quests. Players can now gain a little more XP, but completing tasks has become significantly more difficult. The community is furious and demands that the changes be reversed. This is the main topic of discussion on Reddit. Some players are calling for a boycott. This incident is very reminiscent of the situation with Rewards Track. The release of the new progression system turned out to be a disaster, although the first version was not as bad as the players mistakenly thought. Perhaps this time the community is wrong again? Let's look into all the nuances of the current situation.
This is a very important topic, since the current situation is very ambiguous. The current changes to weekly tasks are the largest in the entire history of the game. This is the first time Blizzard has increased the amount of free resources by such a huge amount of gold. But the company's true motives are most likely predatory. In this video we will look at all the details and proposed versions of this company's solution. We will also carry out calculations of how new changes will affect players' profits.
Let's start from the beginning. News of changes to the quest system was published in the description of the recent patch. In the huge list of changes, there was no place to describe the reasons for these innovations. Although such radical changes deserve a separate article on the official website. We get the feeling that Team 5 hoped that the conditional improvements would go unnoticed by the players. All the developers did was write one sentence at the very bottom of the category describing bugs and improvements. Here's what Blizzard published. Some daily and weekly quests have been adjusted to be harder to complete but will grant more XP. The absence of any dialogue between developers and players continues to be the main feature of Hearthstone. Dean Ayala, we miss you so much. While other studios at least pretend that they are interested in player feedback and the community's opinion is important to them, Blizzard is too lazy to even pretend to care.
Guys, let's get straight to the drama. What exactly happened to the quests?
Here are the tasks I found in my quest log. The traditional quest for 5 wins in rank mode increased the reward by 20%. Which will allow me to get 500 XP, which is equivalent to almost 17 gold coins, but the difficulty of the task increased 3 times, since I will have to win 15 times over the course of the week.
The average match duration is 8 minutes. With a 50% win rate, it will take you 4 hours to complete the task, but if you are using a control deck, your time could be 7 hours or even more. The second example is the quest that forces you to use new creatures with the miniaturize keyword. You would need to play almost 5 times as many creatures to get 17 coins more. Thus, the reward for each weekly quest has increased by 500 XP, but to complete them you need to spend a disproportionate amount of time. The total profit of players will be increased by 50 gold coins for completing all weekly tasks. This means that your income during the expansion phase will increase by 850 coins.
Players' calls for a boycott forced the team to respond on the official website. Here's how they stated their reasons. Our aim with the adjustments was to give all our players goals to play towards, and to reward our most engaged players, who would likely still complete the weekly quests without too much difficulty, for their commitment to the game. But we've heard your feedback and it's clear that we pushed too far. It also became known that in the near future they will release an emergency patch that will make the conditions for receiving rewards balanced in relation to the increased XP. Can we consider that the conflict is over? The increased reward will remain, the conditions for completing missions will be balanced. The developers definitely made a mistake but quickly corrected it.
I think this time the conflict is really settled, but I don't agree that it was a mistake. We'd like to share our thoughts on Blizzard's true motives.
Moreover, they are not hidden so much as they are honestly stated in the message. Pay attention to the wording. Our aim was to give all our players goals to play towards, and to reward our most engaged players. Please note, goals for everyone and rewards for active players. This means that the original idea was to make the weekly quest category incredibly difficult for casual players to complete and force them to either spend significantly more effort or forego the reward entirely, as well as create the illusion that active players are receiving more rewards. And yes, I was not mistaken. Increasing rewards are an illusion especially for active players.
I have heard several opinions, including from popular members of the community, that the reason for this situation is the incompetence of the people who are developing progression in the game. The changes to the quest system may have been a very poor attempt to increase player engagement. But you guys seem to think differently.
Yes, we have a completely different opinion. The employees who suggested this changes most likely were not incompetent. They wanted to make fundamental changes in the progression system for a specific purpose. This is not an accident or a mistake. It looks like a well thought out plan that could not be implemented due to the loud players. Perhaps they even hoped that the voices of casual players would be drowned out by the hype around the new duets mode for Battlegrounds.
Let's also discard the idea of increasing player engagement. Based on data from our subscribers, our community is spending a record amount of time in the game since the release of Rewards Track. This data is based on the overall level of our viewers. A small percentage of players engage in passive grinding. There is also a huge problem with bots in the game, which creates additional activity on the servers. Under the current circumstances, we see no point in artificially increasing player engagement. The game is interesting enough, at least for active players to spend a lot of time in it, but it is impossible to get casual players to start working in the game using such methods. The official version with additional goals for players also looks unconvincing, since we have a whole huge section with various tasks of this type. I mean gameplay achievements. If you don't know what to do in the game, you can complete these quests and receive an additional meager reward. Completing all tasks will take you a huge amount of time. The vast majority of players completely ignore this category of quests. For this reason, implementing an approach that has already been implemented and practically does not work is completely insane. And we don't believe that Blizzard has gone crazy.
That is, you insist on your own version of deliberately increasing the barrier for casual players. But what is the strategy behind this approach? What does Blizzard want to achieve?
Dora, how many games as a service do you know in which the battle pass can be completed only by completing quests once a week and without much effort? Hearthstone's progression system is very liberal for casual players. They can receive huge rewards for much less time invested. I think this is a very cool feature. Moreover, the game never encouraged players to grind. The more time you spend in the game, the less benefits you are able to get for your time. This is the original ideology of the game.
The profit of a casual player is not much different from the profit of very active players, since quests are the main source of resources. Most likely, Blizzard's original goal was to reduce the profits of casual players. It would be extremely difficult for them to get 15 wins and complete 2 more weekly tasks once a week or even several times a week. If you are not willing to spend a lot of time on the game, you will receive significantly less rewards, which means you will have more incentive to buy the Tavern Pass, bundles or pre-orders. In other words, with this approach, Blizzard was trying to separate casual players from active players and force them to pay money. This is a brilliant strategy that would work in any other mobile game but not in Hearthstone. We have a theory that Hearthstone is going through a financial crisis. Our opinion is based on indirect data from the mobile market, which has been the most important source of profit. Over the past few years, developers have been desperately trying to increase revenues with cosmetics, bundles, experimental items, and so on. But all this is more likely to slow down the decline than to increase profit. For the first time in history, Blizzard has introduced early access to a card only for pre-order holders. Even this step did not significantly increase the number of people willing to make a purchase. Cosmetics are getting worse, but there are more and more cosmetic items in the store. The game has significantly slowed down the pace of development. Moreover, the game is actively narrowing down, removing game modes. The main priorities are aimed at monetization. And this problem is much more complicated than you can imagine, since players spend quite a lot of time in the game. The game's audience is huge, and profits, at least on the mobile market, are showing a constant decline. This forces developers to resort to chaotic and even destructive methods to change the situation.
Let's say you convinced me that this is not a random stupid decision, but a predatory plan by the Hearthstone team to reduce loyalty to casual players. But the community managed to benefit from the current situation. Why do you think that the increase in rewards is an illusion?
You already know the answer to this question if you watched our previous videos about ways to get a complete collection of Hearthstone cards in 2024. Blizzard can't give players more resources not because they are greedy, but because it would completely destroy the monetization of the game. All they can do is manipulate resources.
In other words, they take a resource from one reward category and transfer it to another category, which in turn has virtually no effect on the balance of resources in the game and does not change the value of the collection. This time they removed the Diamond Legendary card from the Legendary Collector Achievement reward pool and turned it into additional XP for weekly quests. These rewards are almost equivalent in value to obtaining a complete card collection. Moreover, developers made a worse offer for active players, since in the past they could get a card with an exclusive design that was guaranteed to increase their collection, while now they can only expand their collection with a regular random legendary card. Moreover, if the community had not staged an uprising, then active players would have had to spend extra time on stupid tasks in order to receive a reward in the same amount. Paradoxically, in the current situation, after reducing the conditions for receiving rewards, only casual players will receive real benefits, since their profits will again increase slightly, while those of active players will remain almost unchanged.
Guys, I'm really tired of being disappointed in Blizzard. I'm sad that Hearthstone is increasingly associated with controversial decisions by developers. I had high hopes that Microsoft would improve the situation, but I must admit that the situation has become much worse than it was during Bobby Kotick's leadership. How long can this go on?
Dora, we don't have any positive predictions for you. The intensity of such incidents will only intensify.
At least until the new Hearthstone director takes responsibility for implementing a new global monetization strategy, as current approaches are gradually losing their effectiveness. We repeat this year after year. Hearthstone still has enormous potential, both for development and for monetization. With very simple methods, developers can resurrect Duels mode, Twist and Classic formats, increase the variety in the game and at the same time increase profits. But Blizzard management is more interested in short-term actions to increase profits.
I can't wait to hear the community's thoughts. Dear friends, what do you think about the drama of weekly quests? Is it an attempt to improve the experience of active players? A hidden way to increase player engagement? The result of complete incompetence of the people in charge? Or a neat predatory plan that failed to be implemented? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the polls in the community tab.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.